One of my favorite video games growing up as a teenager was Halo. And the reason why is because I was just purely obsessed with the Master Chief. Everything about him, right? And I was really obsessed with the idea of a super soldier, somebody that is biologically enhanced to be able to fight in the most dangerous conditions and essentially take down a whole army of humans or whoever, right? Regular people by itself. And I thought that the Spartan program from Halo was just something that inevitably would happen. And also the timeline of Halo itself seemed to be something that I thought could realistically play out in the real world. And it seems like with the news that John Ratcliffe delivered to us about China, that may be a possibility already. But before we get into that, my name is Greg Foreman and you're watching a Black Conservative Perspective. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black Conservative Perspective, aka a leftist worst nightmare. You can also follow me on Twitter at GForemanBCP. Let's get it. All right, guys. So the Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, came out in an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal in which he talked about how China was probably the biggest threat to the United States economically, politically, militarily, technologically, in all kinds of ways. He talked about how they were stealing our technology, taking our intellectual property, turning around, creating their own companies, and then selling our technology on the global market as if they came up with it, like they put in the hard work. He even talked about how the U.S. government estimates that China's intellectual property theft costs us as much as $500 billion a year. Or to put it in a more sober perspective, $4,000 to $6,000 per U.S. household. I mean, that's crazy. It's almost like China is literally stealing money out of our pockets. But one thing that he mentioned that I don't think enough people are talking about is that China apparently is trying to biologically enhance people in their army in order to become super soldiers. Now, the New York Post has a great article that goes into a little bit more detail about how this possibly could be. So we'll go ahead and get into that. Members of China's People's Liberation Army were subjected to science fiction style human testing to create, quote, biologically enhanced super soldiers, a top U.S. intelligence official said Friday. The Middle Kingdom is launching, quote, unethical military experiments that sound fit for the superhero flick Captain America. John Ratcliffe, the director of national intelligence, said in a Wall Street Journal op-ed, quote, there are no ethical boundaries to Beijing's pursuit of power, Ratcliffe proclaims, citing U.S. intelligence. Quote, People's Republic of China poses the greatest threat to America today. The technologically ambitious country has been working to develop, quote, soldiers with biologically enhanced capabilities as a part of a scheme to take over, quote, the planet economically, militarily, and technologically. The intelligent honcho gave no other details about the human testing, but China has ambitions to use biotechnology during war through the gene editing technology, scholars said in a research paper last year, according to NBC News. Ratcliffe's office and the CIA didn't immediately return a request for details about the program, but Chinese researchers in recent years have experimented with the gene editing tool CRISPR, short for clusters of regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats, to treat diseases and potentially enhance human performance. By contrast, Western scientists consider it unethical to manipulate genes to boost the performance of healthy people. Quote, while the potential leveraging of CRISPR to increase human capabilities on the future battlefield remains only a hypothetical possibility at the present, there are indications that Chinese military researchers are starting to explore its potential, wrote the scholars, including Elsa Kanaya, an expert in Chinese defense technology. Quote, Chinese military scientists and strategists have consistently emphasized that biotechnology could become a new strategic commanding heights of the future revolution and military affairs. In the 2011 flick Captain America, the character Steve Rogers undergoes an experiment in which he gives, quote, super soldier serum to increase his strength and cure his ailments. All right, guys. I think this is fascinating news. Truly fascinating, not just because of my interest in science fiction and Halo and things of that nature, but just because I don't buy for 1 second that the U.S. military is also not participating in the same thing. I'm not saying I know for sure. I'm not saying I have the information on it. But I guarantee you that the U.S. is not letting China develop super soldiers without us having those same capabilities, or maybe even being ahead of China with those capabilities. When it comes to technological advancements, right, there's a reason why Nazi Germany was so ahead of its time. There's a reason why the world feared it from a technological and scientific standpoint. They were willing to go above and beyond from an ethical standpoint in order to do what they had to do to push the limits of science and technology. Now, I'm not saying it's right. It is unethical. Only thing I'm saying is that if China's doing this, then I don't see how the U.S. is also not doing it. I mean, multiple times President Trump has hinted at us having some type of new super weapon or some type of capability that we've never seen before. And, you know, with the amount of security clearance and things that go on in the military that we just don't know about, I just wouldn't be surprised. To me, it seems like having super soldiers is really just a natural part of the evolution in terms of military technology and where we're going. Now, it remains to be seen whether or not China has actually been successful with this. You know, how many people have died from it, you know, what exactly goes into it. But, you know, this is something that the Director of National Intelligence is telling us. So we know that there is probably some truth to this. And he also has warned about China's efforts with 5G in order to try to dominate telecommunications and collect intelligence on our own politicians and U.S. interests. That's also something that he has warned us about. And I mean, really, at this point, you know, considering what China's doing and the direction they're going in, a lot of people talk about Russia. China, in my opinion, is the biggest threat. No doubt in my mind. I mean, they're literally taking over. I mean, they dominate the South China Sea. They try to bully India, Pakistan, and all their other neighbors. They have strong influences in Africa. They're really trying to be the world's next superpower, if not already. And it really concerns me that a potential Biden administration will be in office who we suspect may have some close ties to China or may be friendlier towards China than President Trump. Everybody should be concerned about that because they are anti-American. There's no doubt about that. And if we have a president like Biden who's going to be soft on China, the only thing that's going to do is make it easier and more likely that China may overtake the U.S. one day as the world's number one superpower. And we just cannot let that happen. It'll be interesting to see what happens because I'm not necessarily sure if you can have two dominant superpowers like China, who has an ideology of communism and authoritarianism, versus, you know, the United States of individualism, freedom, capitalism, etc. I'm not sure if you can have two superpowers competing like that at the same time on the world stage. At some point, it seems like we are bound for some type of conflict. So, again, this is exciting stuff from a science fiction standpoint, but also very scary stuff from a foreign policy perspective as well. So, I'm not necessarily sure what to make of this, but I do think it's absolutely fascinating. So, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.